He was barreling down the highway, extreme, way too fast. But he was the talking and he was the driving. And as I sat in that passenger's seat that morning, listening to my husband yelling and complaining, something snapped inside of me. And all of a sudden, I just hello there. Welcome. This is Life After Trauma with Dr. Jan, helping you to take a stand and put an end to all the drama. Just think of me as your second mama. Hi, I am Dr. Jan, and my channel is all about the trauma and the drama of domestic abuse. A woman's wedding day should be the happiest day of her life, but mine wasn't. Vincent and I were married on Thanksgiving Day in 1959. It was a cold and outcast day, an overcast day, should I say, which could have been the prophecy of our future marriage. Um, God only knows how my parents, as wonderful as they are, how they were able to pull off our splendid church wedding, which was attended by lots and lots of people. We had a big crowd at our wedding, Vincent and I, and everything was beautiful. The church, the decorations, the ceremony, the reception, all of the guests. It was everything a bride would want. It was a beautiful wedding. Everything was beautiful except for the wedding couple. It was wrong from the start. That splendid day was spoiled when Vincent and I got into an argument while standing in the receiving line during the reception. Can you imagine that? Claiborne, an old high school friend of mine, came over in the line. He kissed me on the cheek. He shook Vincent's hand and he congratulated us both on our wedding and on our marriage. After Clay had walked away, Vincent pinched me hard on my arm and leaned over and hissed in my ear, "How long have you been sleeping with him?" I was so shocked. I couldn't believe my ears. I almost fainted right there in the receiving line. Still, I was not about to let Vincent get away with such an insult. And so I immediately pinched him back discreetly and I whispered in his ear, "Never, you fool," while continuing to force a smile and greet my guests that were in the receiving line. By the time Vincent and I climbed into the decorated wedding car prepared for the bride and the groom to take them around the city with the horns blasting, Vincent and I were duking it out. It is just incredible. And so, little did I know that the remainder of the 20 years in which we lived together would be almost like that every day. Vincent and I got married during midterms, the midterm exams. And so we spent our honeymoon studying for a midterm test. Now, Vincent was a brilliant student and he had a nearly perfect grade point average. And as long as we were studying or reading together, we got along fine. And so our honeymoon was good because we were studying for tests. It's amazing how the two of us got along so well when we were either at college studying or we were in the library reading. But the moment we came home to our apartment and we weren't studying, that was when the bickering would begin. I don't know what was up with that, but we argued constantly. Vincent was never what I would call a social person. That just was not his personality. But he didn't want me to socialize, and social was my personality. Plus, Vincent didn't even want me to visit my own parents. He didn't want me to see my friends. He didn't want me to talk to the neighbors. He was possessive of me and my time all the time. And he was suspicious of everybody. He was becoming increasingly more and more jealous, and he wanted me to be with him all the time. And yet, when I was with him, he wouldn't even talk to me or treat me decently. It was like living with a perfect stranger. I didn't understand how to please my husband. He was suspicious of everything and everybody. And if I went to the grocery store, or if I went to the hairdressers, or even if I went to the laundromat, Vincent would time me on everywhere I went. And he would base the time based on what he thought the amount of time it should have taken me to do whatever I was doing. And heaven forbid if I got caught in a traffic jam, or if I were in a checkout line and the checkout line was longer than I had anticipated. And I would always, before I got into a checkout line, I would look to see which was the shortest line. And I would get in that shortest line, and you guessed it, it would end up being the longest line. And when I got home, he would interrogate me like he was a prosecuting attorney and I was the witness on the court, on the witness stand in a courtroom. And he would ask me, "Where were you? What were you doing? Who were you talking to?" And he was quick with it, and he was clever with words, and he would make me feel so nervous. And even though I was innocent and I wasn't doing anything, he would accuse me and make me feel and look as if I were guilty and that I needed to be punished. Before Vincent and I got married, I had lots of friends and I was very, very social. And I wanted to continue that after we got married. There were young married couples around us, but Vincent could not relate to them and he didn't want us to be associated with them. And so he kept me isolated from the various people. And I wanted to please my husband. I wanted to make him happy, but some people you just can't please. It was impossible to please Vincent, and he kept raising the standards higher and higher for me. And finally, I just got to the point where I stopped trying. Living with Vincent, it was like walking on eggshells. My heart was always in my mouth. I never knew what was going to happen from one day to the next. And that was just the way it was. One morning, Vincent and I were going to school. We got up and we were making our daily commute from the city of Philly to Cheney University. And in the car, we began to argue. What's new about that? And I don't even remember what we were arguing about or what difference it made, but I do know that Vincent, whatever it was, he was extremely angry with me. And I remember sitting in the passenger's seat, listening to Vincent go on, accusing me things I hadn't done, just talking. And all the while, Vincent was talking about me and yelling at me and screaming. He was barreling down the highway, extreme, way too fast. But he was talking and he was driving. And you know what? I had gotten tired of him browbeating me, always nitpicking, always constantly criticizing me, putting me down, never having anything good to say to me. And as I sat in the passenger's seat that morning, listening to my husband yelling and complaining, something snapped inside of me. And all of a sudden, I just screamed at the top of my lungs, "Oh, shut up!" Vincent was shocked because that was so out of character for me. But then he collected himself, still driving, and he took his right hand and he whacked me across my face as hard as he could. Before I could process what had taken place, we I slapped him back across his face, forgetting that he was driving. And can you imagine? He reached for me for my hair because he would love to take me by the hair and drag me around the apartment. But this time, as he reached for me, I ducked. And he got lost control of the car, and the car started swerving off the road. And so he tried to correct, but he overcorrected, and the car spun out of control, and it turned over, and it went over and over and over and over. And all of a sudden, my life flashed in front of my eyes, and I just knew we were going to die. And you know what? I didn't even care because life had gotten so awful that I knew that death would be better than living the way Vincent and I were living. And so, and as far as I was concerned, death would be a welcome relief. But God was there with both of us, and God did not let us die. The car turned over and it landed upside down on the side of the road. The roof of the car was just inches from the steering wheel. The windshield was cracked, was crushed, and the doors were jammed shut. We couldn't open them, but we both managed to climb out of the side windows. And I remember back in the 50s and the 60s, there were no seat belts, but the cars were made out of real solid steel. And so it was by the grace of God we were not even hurt, which was a miracle. As a matter of fact, Vincent did not get a scratch on him. And the only injury that I got was a small cut on my left knee and the embarrassment of acting like a heathen. Oh, but Vincent's green 1953 Chevy car, that car that Vincent loved more than he ever loved me. Vincent's car was totally destroyed. And I think that hurt Vincent to his ever loving soul. Well, you can believe that God got our attention. And Vincent and I looked at each other and we recognized that God had given us a second chance. We were so grateful. We just hugged and we just kissed each other, and we just knew that God was giving us a chance to reconcile ourselves and to make a good go of our marriage. And God had sent his guardian angels around us to protect us. Didn't protect the car. The car was totally destroyed. But the two of us, we were saved. Saved because God had a plan and a purpose for the both of us. And as far, God was far better to us than we had been to ourselves. And so we grabbed each other, we kissed and we cried and we held on to each other, just so thankful to have his grace and his mercy, knowing that we didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve another chance, but we had another chance. And at that moment, Vincent and I, we said to each other, let's try again. We can make a go of this marriage. And we promised each other that we would start over and do everything right by each other. And we were so sincere. The question is, could we do it? Could Vincent and I love, cherish, and honor each other till death do us part? Could we keep our promises to each other?